This is my genogram. My name is Britta Hall. For the first question, what significant trends did you see across your genogram? So for me, on my dad's side, while this can kind of go with, I believe it's question 4, the women in my family on my father's side all suffer from whether it's minimal to severe depression and or anxiety. My grandma has suffered with that pretty much her whole life, and all of my aunts have depression and or anxiety, and then as you can see, some of my siblings and I in this area also have that, including one of my brothers. And as far as on my mom's side, and actually both sides have experienced some form of abuse, whether that be physical, sexual, emotional, verbal. It is something that both sides of my family have been through. The thing that surprised me most about this was how much information I really didn't know at all. I have genealogy stuff that my dad's mom does, but there really wasn't any information that was tagged along with it. I know more information about my dad's side just because I am closer to them, whereas on my mom's side, as you can see, here, I never knew my grandma or my grandpa. My mom didn't know her dad, and there really isn't a relationship there. My mom had a relationship with her sister Robin, but that's about it. So I didn't really know much other than the birth dates and death dates of most of my family on my mom's side. So that was something that definitely surprised me. I have a lot more research to do just so I can know more about my family. In regards to family dynamics or interpersonal issues, like I said, while I don't know much about my mom's side, I do know that growing up for my mom, it was just she was in survival mode. Like I said, my mom's father left the family when my mom turned 1, and so at that point, my grandma was in charge of raising 5 kids as a single mother. So for that, the kids just kind of had to fend for themselves and do what they could do to stay alive. They had a little help from my great grandma Sarah, and that's a relationship my mom did value before she passed away. But as far as that, it was survival. And Alice, my mom's mom, as far as I know, she kind of lived a promiscuous life, and that kind of transcended down into a lot of her children. As far as my dad's side, family was something that was always super important to them. Both my grandma and grandpa were adopted by their parents, and they always grew up feeling and knowing that family was always the number one thing. And here the green dashed lines mean just close relationships. And if I could, I would have put it for everyone in every relationship. I was trying to keep this as organized and neat as possible. But the family dynamic that I learned and am practicing to this day is just that importance of sticking up for your family and always being there for them no matter what. It's something that my grandpa taught his 5 children, and it's something that my dad as well as my mom together have taught me and my 8 other siblings, and honestly it is something that we as a family value and feel like is the most important in our lives. The evidence of intergenerational transmission, from what I've already pointed out kind of my mom's side. The thing that I thought of most, just because I don't know much, would be just the behaviors that have been passed down. All I know about Ralph, who is my mom's dad, was that he left the family to go pursue another woman. And so he fled, and they never heard from him again. That left Alice obviously very heartbroken and going through her own struggles now as a single mother of 5, and she had to do what she could to support the family, but she also then turned to living a promiscuous life and wasn't around much because she was out living that single life, as my mother would put it. Alice got pregnant pretty young, and that led her daughters, as well as a son of hers, to live a promiscuous life as she did. Robin, my aunt, she became a mom at 16, and while everyone walks different lives, and this isn't to say it's bad or anything, she later told my mom that she was just following what she knew. It's what her mom did. She saw her dad walk out as Robin was older than my mom, and so for her, it was just kind of her way of life as she saw it as a little kid, and so she followed those footsteps. So behaviorally, I would say that's something that I feel was passed down, and while I think some of the siblings did break that trend, it definitely is something that is continuing to affect my cousins nowadays as well, as they watch their mother live a different kind of lifestyle. They're following right behind her. As far as my dad's side, kind of like going back to the family thing, there was just a lot of love, and it's something that has been passed down, a lot of love and caring and compassion, and this is something that I think is super important. Another thing, thinking further on what other things had been passed down, my grandpa was in the military, and so my dad grew up as someone would call a military brat. He grew up in it. He moved, not traveled, every 3 years with his family. My grandpa was in the Coast Guard for 22 years. So in their family, obedience was something that was expected. And if you weren't obedient, there were consequences. And from what I see from the way my parents were raised, I don't think it was as militant, maybe, as my dad went through. But I do definitely think that that was passed down in the way of raising children, is what my parents say go. And while we can argue about it, we most likely will not get our way because we are taught that respect is something that is super important, respecting your elders and your parents. And so I feel like that's something that was also passed down from my grandparents to my dad and then now to us. And I think that can be seen as intergenerational transmission. And then from this assignment, what I learned, kind of as I alluded to earlier, is that I really do still have a lot more to learn from my family. I'm aware of some illnesses. Both my grandma and grandpa suffer from leukemia and breast cancer. On my mom's side, my grandpa and grandma both had heart diseases. I just have a lot to learn, and I think it's cool that, through this genogram, I can see the things that have been passed down and some similarities as well as differences, and I think it's important that I know these things as I come to have children and can either break cycles on things that I see that maybe aren't the best, but also continue to do things that I see have helped in past generations as well as in myself.